Today we're going to be talking about mammalia and how interesting and spicy they are. All of their bits and pieces, their organ systems and such, what makes a mammal, the cardiovascular system, and we'll talk about some fun, interesting, different types of mammals at the end. So what is a mammal? They are fuzzy, they are youthful in the fossil time scheme. They're filled with milk, they're vertebrates, humans love them too much, and they're endothermic. So, what does that all mean? Mammals are hairy. All mammals produce hair at least one stage in their life. So, for example, whales aren't really hairy when they're full grown, but they do produce hair when they're in their embryonic stages. And hair is super important for the average mammal. It functions in a lot of different ways. So it functions for thermoregulation. It can help keep animals way more warm, or it can help them cool off depending on how the fur is structured, or hair. It has a function in sexual selection, so bright, beautiful colors, or anything of that sort, long hair in different parts of the body, all those can be sexually attractive to different mates. I mean, pretty interesting how human courtship can kind of involve the use of beautiful hair. Crypsis, so hair patterns that allow them to blend into their environment, sort of like camouflage. It can function for defense, so take like porcupines and stuff, which have modified their hair to become quills, which are really spiky and painful. They can lose hair to hopefully avoid their hold on predators. There's a bunch of different ways they can use it for defense. And importantly, it's used for sensory stuff. So take whiskers on a cat. They use that to really feel around and understand their environment a lot better. And whiskers and stuff like that can be really important in especially like nocturnal mammals. So they produce milk, which allows their young to develop outside of the womb, which can be beneficial. It allows the mom to go beetle bop on off and hunt for food a little bit easier and then bring it back to the young. They're not as reliant at all times on mom. But they can also get a big nutrient boost that like egg babies might not have. They're pretty youthful, so I tried to do a lot of research into where mammals really popped up, but God knows that was kind of difficult to discern, and fossils are always hard to be like, is this the original mammal? No, is it this one? No, is it an in-betweener? Who are you? So we'll just basically say most modern mammal groups really got going after the KT extinction event. Prior to this, dinosaurs were running amok everywhere and really being the bosses of the world. And after that, mammals were able to eat their eggs and really take over. Since a lot of those guys died, essentially mammals were like, it's free real estate, and then they went everywhere. They took over everything. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of sad though, because dinosaurs are really rad, and the only dinosaurs we have left are birds, and birds are often very squeaky and unintimidating. Some of them are scary, but oh well. So mammalian ancestors kind of broke off from our reptilian sister group around like maybe 300-ish million years ago. You can look into the history of the synapsids. I already know this video is probably going to be too long, so that's a whole other thing in and of itself. But yes, reptiles are our sister group. They're our most related group, and I think that's amazing. Our little scale cousins, so cute. The vertebrates, they have spines. Pretty self-explanatory. We don't really need to get into that. The vast majority of them are endothermic. A couple of weirdos are mesothermic. They don't really produce heat that well. So that's rock hyraxes, which are sort of closely related to elephants, but they look like little rodents. You can look into those. If I've learned anything from biology, it's that every rule that you want to put out there has a bizarre, strange exception. So you just learn to get used to that. But the vast majority of them are endothermic, which means that they are massive energy wasters and they can produce their own heat, which means that they're not as reliant on outside heat sources like the sun and stuff like that. As a side note, mammals are also way more studied and more liked than most other types of critters on the planet. It's way easier to get people into thinking how cute pandas are than it is to get them to think about how cute little salamanders are, like hellbenders and stuff. And then God forbid you ever try to talk about how cute like pseudoscorpions and scorpions are. But you know what? Good for mammals. I'm proud of them for getting so much funding. But yeah, variety is the spice of life, guys. That's just an aside. Look into other types of organisms. There's lots of really neat ones out there that aren't fuzzy and cute. So there's 3 major types of mammals. So up here, this is a lovely echidna. This is representative of the monotreme group. There's like 5 species left in this. They're essentially kind of primitive oddballs, or ancestral, I guess I would say. There's like 4 species of echidna and then platypi. Over here, you've got the lovely marsupials, one of my favorites of which is the opossum, which is North America's only native marsupial. They're fantastic in every way. I'll talk more about them later. And then down here, here's some pictures I took of an adorable big brown bat. Bats are actually one of the most diverse groups of placental mammals, which is the 3rd group, which really surprised me when I learned that, because most people don't really talk about bats too much, but they're really rad. So that's the 3 main groups: monotremes, marsupials, and placentals. Alright, so let's talk about some basic organ systems. Most of these you probably know because you are an organism who has to function and exist, and you know that you pee, and you eat, and you digest. So I won't go too deep into most of these, but we will talk about the reproductive system and the cardiovascular system more in depth. So you've got like the musculoskeletal system, which is muscles and skeleton. Support, it's for support and locomotion, so you're not just squishing around. There's the digestive system, which is like the stomach, the liver, intestine, pancreas. It digests food for energy. Not a whole lot to say. You guys know how all that is. The nervous system, so like brain, nerves, spinal cord, that's for control of the body. So you get messages around the body, so like sensory stuff. Pain, it's essentially the messenger for the body. And the nervous system includes the sensory system, which is part of the nervous system. So like I just said, sorry. So like ears, eyes, all the parts for the 5 major senses, each of which kind of varies in its usage depending on what mammal we're talking about and their life history. So like nocturnal mammals might utilize smell and hearing a lot more than diurnal animals because there's a lot less light to go around, and so you've got to kind of rely on something else. Meanwhile, diurnal mammals might focus a whole lot more on sight, since you can see a lot better in the day. So all that kind of differs depending on what species you're talking about. Then there's the urinary system, bladder, kidneys, ureter. It's to rid the body of poisons and wastes and pee. You've got the respiratory system, which is obviously important. So lungs, diaphragm. It's for gas exchange, getting that good O2 in and getting rid of that CO2 and anything else. And then the reproductive systems are where things get really interesting along 3 mammalian groups, in my opinion. So first off, we'll talk about the monotremes, which are the ancestral oddballs. A lot of their traits are likely what the ancestor of mammals had. So they have parchment-shelled eggs with a pretty short incubation time, like I think I read like 10 or 12 days. So they're egg-laying. a word for that is oviparous. Ovi refers to egg, and parous is bearing, I believe. They don't have nipples, but they do produce milk, so it just kind of like leaks out into their hair, and the babies drink it. I don't know. Monotremes are weird. That's basically what they do. They actually have a cloaca for reproduction and excrement, just like reptiles and amphibians and stuff do. Cloaca is actually Latin for sewer. It's essentially a multi-purpose hole. Everything goes in and out of there, except for the eating part, obviously. And then it gets really weird when we talk about the male genitalia. So they have a four-headed penis, which is horrifying, and you should look it up. It's very interesting. As well as internal testicles. They don't need to be distended in order to do what they do and produce sperm for whatever reason. It's very strange. And then, echidnas also have a pouch for young, and young echidnas are called puggles, which I just thought was cute. They're not marsupials, but they do have a little pouchy thing. Now we move on to marsupials, which are pretty interesting. They've got a pouch for babies on the go. Moms have to be working moms and going all about their business regardless of the babies. So they have a yolk-like placenta. It doesn't really attach. It's mostly a bag of nutrients, which means that since the mom can't really continue producing, giving energy and stuff to the baby, the young are born very early. And their birth is very strange. So they're born really early in development, with really well-developed forelimbs, well-developed muscles for chewing, and stuff like that, so that they can climb out of the vaginal canal into the pouch in order to latch onto a nipple and continue development there. So imagine that you are born and you completely skipped leg day. Your legs are weak. Your leg game is weak. You're kind of dumb. Everything else has like slowed development, but you have beefy arms and you can chew. And then you have to crawl right out of the vaginal canal, climb all the way up the pouch, which is a lot when you're like the size of a jelly bean, and then crawl in there and then find the nipple in order to continue existing. Marsupials go hard, y'all. It's kind of wild. They get weirder. So males have a forked penis. I believe a bifurcated penis was the right word. As well as external testicles. But the weird part is that the penis goes behind the testicles. It's like, what? I don't know why. Meanwhile, females have 2 uteri, 2 vaginal canals, and a birth canal that forms in between them when birthing becomes a thing. Marsupials are really extra. And then they can do this really cool thing called reproductive diapause, which is essentially where you've got arrested development of the blastocyst, so like a little pre-embryo essentially, so that females can space litters out well, depending on like nutrient availability and stuff like that. What time of year is it? A young suckling in the pouch inhibits progesterone, which inhibits development of that blastocyst. So, if I understand this right, like a kangaroo can have a large, pretty well-developed joey that's hopping around outside, a little baby joey that's inside the pouch suckling and developing, like a little tiny guy, as well as a blastocyst that's just ready anytime she's good to give birth again, all at the same time, which is pretty interesting. And then we've got the placental mammals, which kind of take over the world, one well-developed placenta at a time. So the placenta really connects to mom, as opposed to the yolk-like placenta in marsupials, which allows for longer development inside the womb. It essentially means that mom can give the little baby nutrients, it can help with gas exchange, and she can help eliminate waste from the embryo, all through mom, so they don't have to be born really early, so they can develop longer in the womb, which is pretty cool. Interestingly enough, out of like 7 continents, 6 of them, placental mammals, basically were just like, yeet! And then marsupials were like, okay, I give up. Aside from the opossum for some reason. I don't understand that guy. They're awesome. So there's a lot of theories about this. I didn't see one that was like really like, yeah, that's what happened. So with a grain of salt, but it's possibly because it's way easier to give your embryo energy through the placenta as opposed to producing milk, which is pretty energetically costly. And it's also energetically costly for young to digest milk as opposed to just being handed digested nutrients through the placenta. So that's a theory that it's just more taxing. It could be because marsupials that just leave the womb all hardcore are exposed to more diseases than little babies that just sit in the womb all pretty and wait for development to continue. There's a lot of there's some other theories, and basically it was like, I don't know, and then scientists were just like, So, interesting stuff. Now we're going to talk about the cardiovascular system, and instead of me trying to do the godforsaken act of waving my mouse around and trying to show you where everything goes, I found a video that's only like 2 minutes long, so God bless. This should be a little bit easier for y'all, if it plays. Why? Come on. Of course it played the other 2 times I tried to record this, and it won't now. Oh well. I'll link the video right below this, and y'all can watch it. It's not too bad. Why? Oh well. We'll just skip right ahead to some fun mammal examples. I keep trying, but I don't know why. Alright, so let's talk about some fun monotremes. So this over here is the platypus. It's actually venomous. It's got like a venomous barbed spine. Can't remember if it's in both males and females. I think it's mainly in the males for like fighting. They're really weird. They're aquatic. They've got a duckbill for whatever reason and low web feet. They kind of look like beavers mixed with ducks, and they have a big flat tail at the end. They're really neat to watch move around and stuff. I highly recommend checking out a video on them, and they're pretty hard to keep in captivity, but yeah, they're egg layers, and they lay their eggs in burrows. They don't have a little pouch or anything. And then over here you've got an echidna. These guys are little spiky guys. Both of these guys are Australian, by the way. They've got like a little beak. They've got modified hair that is quills. They're really cute. They're insectivores. Interestingly, so they've got these big claws here, and those are called the grooming claws, so it allows them to like groom through with their short stubby legs all these quills and stuff. These are probably ticks. But yeah, so these guys are cute. It's easy to talk about monotremes because there's only two different kinds, 4 species of echidna and 1 species of platypus. So here are marsupials. They're actually really interesting. The majority of them, like we talked about, is in Australia, but we do have the lovely opossum right here. Opossums are rad as all get out. They're not trash rats or anything like that. They have more teeth than any other North American mammal. They have like 52 teeth, which is too much. They have a little pouch. Obviously, they look like they wear fingerless gloves, and they eat a ton of ticks, which actually helps protect you from Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and all the other tick diseases, like the one that prevents you from eating meat. So if you see an opossum, please leave it be. They're pretty harmless. They're not very smart. I've helped take care of little babies. They're very hissy. I'm very fond of them. And please don't make them play dead. It's basically a huge stressor. They don't really play dead. They basically just pass out, which is unfortunate and stink. They're very soft and fluffy. They really are. Over here, you've got the Tasmanian devil. They're really grumpy little dudes when they're in groups. They're very bitey, which is quite a problem because they have such a limited gene pool now. People have killed off so many of them that they're all somewhat closely related, and they have basically like a mouth cancer that's been killing off the rest of them that they get from biting each other. The cells kind of like take place or whatever. So that's super unfortunate that one of the most bitey mammals around now has a mouth cancer that can be spread through, guess what? Biting. Which is unfortunate. But they're really cute, actually. They look like little bears. Here's a wombat. Wombats are odd. So they're very fossorial, so they're adapted to digging. So much so that they actually have a pouch that faces backwards so that they don't dig dirt into it. They've got like a big cartilaginous butt that they'll block their burrows off with to help protect against predators. And they have like square-shaped poops, I think, because of that. They're interesting little guys. They're way bigger than you think they are. They're like little bulldozers. So we just talked about the opossum right here. This is a possum, not an opossum. A possum. So those guys are a type of marsupial in Australia. They're pretty cute. This is kind of a terrifying picture, but they're pretty cute. So possums and opossums are technically different, although everyone knows what you're talking about if you're in North America and you're just talking about, little possum boys over here. Down here you've got a sugar glider, which are sort of flying squirrel-like critters. A fair amount of people keep them captive, although they're somewhat difficult. But yeah, they are marsupials. Very strange little guys. Over here, you've got a tree kangaroo. So everyone's seen the ground kangaroos and wallabies and stuff. But tree kangaroos, I think, are really cool, really pretty. They got these like big feet for climbing up trees and stuff. Big prehensile tail. I just really like them. I think they're really cool. And then up here, you have a really unfortunate mammal. This is the thylacine, or the Tasmanian tiger. Yes, it is a marsupial. They're not wolves or anything. I think the last one was found in like the 50s. So essentially people moved to Australia and then put a bounty on the thylacine because they thought it was killing goats and sheep and stuff. It probably really wasn't. They're not huge. And like people do, they're really good at slaughtering them. So if you go on Wikipedia and look up the thylacine, you can actually see some of the last video footage they have from the 1930s of like 2 captive individuals who eventually died. Haven't been seen since like the 50s or 60s. They have these really big, weird, wide mouths. And honestly, Jurassic Park is cool, but I'm really hoping that these like more recent die-off mammals and other stuff, they'll be able to bring that back first. I don't think it would be a bad candidate for that kind of thing. So, maybe in our lifetime. And then last but not least, we've got placental mammals. So I decided to pick some really weird ones. Everyone's seen dogs and cats. I want to talk about dogs and cats. We all know them. Let's talk about pangolins. So, like the Pokemon Sandshrew. Sandslash is what this dude is. They're very bizarre. Most people don't know what they are, but they are one of the most trafficked mammals in the world. Trafficked animals in the world. They're native to Asia and Africa. They have these cool, like, keratinous scales. They're, like, one of the few, like, I think we're the only ones, like, scaled mammals. They have a really long, sticky tongue for eating bugs. They're not particularly harmful or in any way. They're not really dangerous. They kind of just walk around and do their thing, but it's really an unfortunate kind of tale. I hope that they don't go extinct in our lifetime, but I'm not really not optimistic about these guys, but you should know about them before that happens. Over here, you've got the binturongs, which are like, what do they call them? Tree bears or dog bears or whatever. Over in Southeast Asia and in the island nations around there. I have been told that they smell like, I believe, popcorn. But they're just these big, weird, interesting mammals. Y'all should definitely go look into them. I've always really liked how they looked. So down here, you've got the tenrec, which is a group of really, really, really weird mammals that are in Madagascar. Now, to be fair, most mammals in Madagascar are super bizarre, but tenrecs are like really, they're really out there. So this right here is the streaked tenrec, and they actually communicate through this thing called stridulation, which is where you essentially use like a part of your body to rattle to make a sound. So think of like rattlesnakes stridulate. That's not really a thing in mammals. I think the streaked tenrec is the only one that does that, and it makes like a I think it was like an infrasoundy kind of sound that they use to communicate with each other, which is really neat. If you think about it, they're so odd. And then there's a whole bunch of different types of tenrecs. If you look on their Wikipedia page, it's basically like, here's something weird that they do that mammals don't do. So I highly, highly recommend looking into that. So over here you've got the boto, which is the Amazonian river dolphin, essentially. They're really cool mammals. They get this like pinkish hue from fighting. Essentially, it's kind of like scars, but they start out as grayish. They live in the Amazon, which is a really difficult environment to kind of navigate. It's so dark, so they're big on echolocation, although they have a short range of echolocation compared to other dolphins, specifically because it would bounce off of all the tree roots and stuff. But they can actually swivel their necks around really well. It's not super fused like it is in other whales, so they're super flexible. There's a lot of cool myths and stories about them. There were river dolphins in China, the Yangtze. I hope I said that right. But they're probably gone now, which is unfortunate. But yeah, Amazonian river dolphins are really basically like river mermaids. They're very cool. Over here you have the Solenodon, which is this weird shrew-like mammal that's got a lot of ancient characteristics. But weirdly enough, it's venomous. It eats bugs and stuff, but it injects venom into its prey. They're native to like Haiti and stuff. There's only 2 species. They're doing poorly because, of course, people introduced like rats and stuff. But they're strange little guys, and no one ever talks about them. So here's a venomous mammal. Sort of non-assuming, aren't they? And then last but not least is the naked mole rat, which is one of my favorite weird mammals by far. They're so strange. They do everything completely different than like anything we know. So they are basically immune to cancer. They can live like 30 years. They live in really low oxygen conditions because they live underground. So they can go with like tiny amounts of oxygen for like 6 hours. They've got a ton of really cool physiological adaptations to be able to deal with that. Their teeth stick out of their face so that they don't eat dirt when they're tunneling. But really, what's really interesting about them is there is a social aspect of them. So they're eusocial. So they have like a queen. Then they have workers, cleaners, guards, stuff like that, just like in bees. And the queen, actually, when she becomes the queen, will grow more vertebrae in order to like increase her size to produce more young. And she'll kind of like, hopefully I'm not getting them mixed up, she'll produce like a pheromone that'll suppress any other females in the colony and suppress their ability to produce young. And so she'll like have a harem of favorite males that she'll breed with. And then all the workers and stuff, they all have their jobs just like bees do. They're so neat. Kim Possible did not really talk about how strange these animals are, other than the fact that they look like what they do. So, anyways, that's pretty much that. I'll link the video of the cardiovascular system in the module and in the heart section part, so that it'll help y'all out. Sorry that didn't play. Hopefully this was pretty interesting for y'all, and yeah, so I'll see y'all in next week's video or whatever.